y seremos lo que somos. Hola, ¿quién dijo hello?
Acá Agustín.
Hola Agustín, estábamos hablando de vos justo.
Ay, ¿qué tal?
Lo presento acá a Agustín, acá te presento a todos los de Chapter de Buenos Aires, todos estos jóvenes millennials que están acá y otros que nos están escuchando ya que son de afuera, de Singularity, pero no del Chapter. Y Agus trabaja en la ONU, es gerente de portfolio senior para medio ambiente, para América Latina y el Caribe, vecino y amigo además, y es uno de los que está traccionando también mucho con Arora para que haya cambios en la ONU. Así que ahí estás, Agus, no sé si te veo, todavía no te veo.
¿No? ¿Me escuchan?
Te veo un poco oscurito, pero ahí estás, sí.
Ah, espera, ahí prendo una luz, espera.
Dale. Bueno, bienvenidos a todos los que no quieren hacer preguntas por ahora. Ahora se te ve más. Bueno. Los que no quieran hacer preguntas por ahora pueden ir muteando sus micrófonos. Aus y Arora se quedan también live conmigo. Y a medida que vayan queriendo hacer preguntas, el plan es que los vayan escribiendo en el chat, y tengo acá un equipo que va a estar registrando las preguntas para poder hacerlas en inglés o en castellano a medida vayan ocurriendo. Bueno, van entrando gente, somos 26. I'm going to switch to English for those who need to speak in English. Arora is going to speak in English, and she will tell her story in English. So wait for there, and we'll talk, about her story, who she is, and what she wants to become, and why. So hold on there for a while, and also let me tell to all of you that on the 29th of April, we are going to do another webinar, and this is only if you have to go. They asked me to, my chapter asked me to tell you that we are going to do also on the 29th of April another webinar related to movilidad sustentable, and the bridge in Latin America. I mean, sustainable mobility, I guess that's the English for this. So stay there with Leo Valente, who has created a specific and magic motor that changes to electricity for motors and cars. So that's an interesting talk too. So now I'm going to introduce Arora. Arora is from ONU, nació en India, en Haryana, y pasó su infancia en Arabia Saudita, a donde había sido trasladado sus padres, y sus dos padres son médicos. De los 9 a 18 años estuvo en un internado en India y después viajó a Canadá, a donde se graduó con mención honorífica en la Universidad de York y trabajó como gerente de auditoría en ese tiempo también en PricewaterhouseCoopers en Canadá. Tiene nacionalidad también en Canadá, si no me equivoco, y fue contratada en 2016 por Naciones Unidas para mejorar controles financieros internos, y ahí es donde empezó su camino en la ONU, ¿no? Y se empezó a involucrar cada vez más ahí. Junto con Agus Materi, que como les decía, también está en la ONU y dirige el portfolio senior de medio ambiente para América Latina y el Caribe. Vamos a hacerle a Arora preguntas en inglés y en español. So hi there, Arora, how are you doing?
Good, thank you so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be here. Hola, everyone.
So nice to have you here.
Thank you.
And the idea is that, first of all, that for us it's very important to understand your story and know more about you. So feel free to tell us, how you decided to do this. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll start from the beginning. So like you said, I was born in India. I come from a family of refugees. All 4 of my grandparents were refugees from Pakistan to India. On my dad's side, my grandparents, to support their family, they were tea vendors. They sold tea and samosas on the streets of Punjab. On my mom's side, my granddad was a mailman. He was a clerk with the government, and he supported a family of 7. And they couldn't complete their middle school education because of the partition. So they had to come to India and do what they had to support families. So their biggest goal was to educate their children. So my parents are the first physicians in their respective villages. So I was born with values of hard work and education, and the importance of education in bringing us forward. When I was 6 years old, my family moved to Saudi Arabia. And Saudi at that time had schools for girls, but they were in Arabic. So math was in Arabic, science was in Arabic, and I couldn't pick up. So I was homeschooled until 9. And after 9, my parents, they decided to send me to boarding school in India to continue formal education. At 18, I went to Canada for college. And Canada, and I think going to Canada, it was a big shock for me at that time, because, English in India was like you studied in English, but then you still speak Hindi all the time. You don't speak in English too much. So I remember my first day in college, everyone was greeting each other as saying, hey, hey. And I'm thinking to myself, why are they calling each other grass? Like, hey, and does this mean we have to call professors trees? So it was a big language shock for me. But then I'm glad that I didn't ask anyone that question. I figured it out myself. And Canada is a great country. It's so warm and welcoming to immigrants. And I was able to have a professional career there. I graduated college, like you said, worked in audit. And in 2016, I got a call from the UN to be part of the financial reforms team. And the context was that the current Secretary General was selected, and reforms of the organization were a big component. Like, President Trump was also elected, and US wanted to make sure that the funding that they give to the UN is used appropriately. So financial reforms was a big thing. So when I joined the UN, I was just so thrilled to bring my expertise into this world platform. I had no desire to run for the position of Secretary General. I was just happy to be at the UN, because, UN comes across like a castle on the hill. And here I was, like, being given the privilege to be part of the castle on the hill. I was just thrilled. So my decision to run for this position is influenced by my experiences at the UN. And I'll explain this in detail. So at a personal level, when I joined the UN, in just a few weeks, I realized that the organization that looks really beautiful and shiny from my side is not delivering on everything I know it's capable of, and everyone knows it's capable of. But like everyone else, I think I just kept my head down and just continued doing my job in what I was told to do. In 6 weeks of being here, I got hit by a cab. So I was leaving work late, and I got hit by a cab, and I had turned 30 that year. And here you are, you think to yourself that the best of life is ahead of you. And I was in the ER with like a broken leg and bleeding and bruises, and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to walk again. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, if I had died today, what would my obituary read? Arora was a selfish person dedicated to the pursuit of happiness for herself alone. Because until that time, my life was I just had focused on myself. Of course, I donated a little, volunteered a little, but I didn't play a big game in life. I tried to do my part and just say, okay, that's all I can do. And that's all I did, to be honest. And in those moments, I was having these conversations with God. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? All my life, I have been a taker. I have taken from my grandparents, my parents, society, women at large, environment. What have I given? Nothing. And if I die, I wouldn't have any contribution made to society. So I was telling God, and I was like, can you please help me get through this? And I promise I'll dedicate my life to making a difference. So God kept his promise, and I'm keeping mine. So I'll tell you now in ways I tried to keep my promise. So I was part of the UN reforms team, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do my best to reform UN internally. And I was unsuccessful, and I'll give you a few examples. For every dollar the UN receives, only 29 cents is used for the cause. So in an entity where the budget is $50 billion, only 15 billion is used for the purpose. Everything else is bureaucracy. And it's so easy to change that, with innovation, with bringing new technologies, new ways of doing things, and there wasn't any appetite to do things differently. When it comes to climate, which I know is something so near and dear to everyone's heart, and environment, for every dollar, only 15 cents, 15% is used in nature-based solution. Everything else goes into bureaucracy, holding conferences, writing reports. And this is not the way that we will solve global crises. Like, today we have the highest number of refugees ever in the world. And these are people who are not voters in any countries. They don't have social media to tell their stories. UN is their only guardian. And we haven't been meeting their basic humanitarian needs of food, clothing, shelter. This has resulted in these people having to fend for themselves. And what options do they have? Like, they're smuggled, sometimes trafficked, or they're lured by terrorist organizations, which is destabilizing the world, causing gross human rights violation. And we need to prioritize that, and UN is not doing it. When it comes to development, UN has tried different models of giving money to the top and hoping it'll trickle down. But what I think is the way to go going forward is to give internet and education to everyone, which are the 21st century tools. And these ideas, everyone knows that this is the way to go, but they haven't been, UN internally hasn't been open to these ideas. So for me, I decided that I'm going to run for the position of Secretary General. And I'll pause here. So that was, for me, the thing that I know the system is capable of doing great things. And I know we have the right staff. We have the most talented. I know you have Augustine here and a lot of other colleagues as well, that they are just so smart, so hardworking, that we have the resources. We have the money to get it done. And we have member states who have passed the decisions to do the right thing. So we need a leadership that can bring UN into the 21st century, that can open doors to people to be hands-on involved. Today, UN, if you're a big entity, you're invited by the UN to participate in conversations. If you're in person, you can try writing to them, you won't even hear back. So I think I just want a UN that's open and inclusive, where you can actually be hands-on involved in the solution and make a difference. So that is my story and my vision for the UN.
Thank you. I was not able to unmute myself again. So thank you, Arora. And how are you planning to do that? Because I know elections are not part of it, or are they? How do you select futures, the new secretary?
So the way it works is that the UN has had 9 Secretary General so far. So except this Secretary General, the previous 8 were selected like the Pope is selected. A very hush-hush, backdoor decision, like conclave. In 2016, the election was slightly open, where countries could nominate their candidate, and then there would be deliberations and discussions. So the way I plan to go about it is, the election is in October. So the first step is to get nominated by a country, and then be part of deliberations, and then you go through Security Council, where you have to get 9 out of 15 votes with no veto, and then go into General Assembly, where we get 2/3 vote. So I think something that Singularity community I know is very interested in is that intersection between technology and social impact and doing good for the work. So as part of my candidacy, I'm required to submit my vision statement on what the new UN should be. So I would love for Singularity community to bring their ideas and suggestions, and through you either get in touch with me, or on my LinkedIn profile, there's a option where they can fill out a Google form and let us know that they want to be part of the solutions, and we can send them links to documents that they can complete. So I would love for everyone to be part of the new UN, because I think after COVID, going through a humanitarian crisis ourselves, we know the pain and suffering of isolation, of being close to death, and being scared of not knowing what could happen when. So I think we have so much sympathy and empathy for the world to make it a better place for everyone, that I would love for all ideas to be part of the solution going forward.
Yeah, that's great. And how do how is being a woman and so young trying to go against these, it sounds like epic also, and sometimes impossible, but then you say, no, this is not impossible. She's making it happen. So how can we help besides singularity? I mean, I know that the guys here are going to, ask you a lot of questions, but just to introduce to that subject.
For sure. So I think one thing I think for me, my journey of for this position to run, the courage of it, of course, came from my personal journey of being in a car accident and realizing that life is so short. But I think what I've realized specifically why I'm running for this position is we need new leadership. We need a leadership that is courageous, that is moral, that puts people, environment, and humanity at the same level and not just their own interest. So in terms of how I'm going about it, like I said, is one thing that people can do is they can go on my website, Arora for SG, and there's an option to vote. So if you go and vote, a vote sends an email to your ambassador that you support change. And in the struggle that you asked of being a woman, do you know what's interesting is that I'm being marginalized on three fronts. When I decided in January, when the reforms were concluded in December 2018, I decided that I'm going to run because the reforms were just a reshuffle. And everyone who works at the UN at some point confronts the dark reality that it looks good from outside, but is not doing great work. And you're given two choices. You're given a choice either to leave or you're given a choice to accept things as they are. And for me, I was like, no, I think there's a different way, which is I want to lead the organization into a better future for everyone. So my 2 years I spent reading everything about the UN, the history of the UN, the history of the charter, and what the new vision should be. There are UN gets $56 billion annually. There are close to 100 entities within the UN, all these facts and stuff. But it's interesting, when I announced my candidacy, no one is disputing facts. We all know we spend for every dollar 30 cents. When it comes to climate, we talk more, do less. We are now, the question is, they don't think, I'm being marginalized on three accounts as a woman. They're still just not open to gender equality in leadership position. And this is an organization that preaches gender equality. When it comes to, when God willing, I'm able to cross that hurdle that, as a woman, I'm equal, I deserve a seat at the table, I deserve a conversation with you, then I'm marginalized on my age. And half of the world today is under 30. Majority is under 35, the definition of youth. Yet when it comes to leadership positions, our generation is just given visitation rights and not participation rights. So I think there's such a paradox here. This is the world we will inherit, but we're not allowed to be part of it. And then as an employee, I come from working class of the UN, right? The employees level. Then I'm marginalized because most of the times every time we give this profile to a senior person, in politics. So I think there's a huge level of disparity and inequality inherent in the system that I think is being confronted. What do we mean when we say gender equality, youth inclusiveness? So it's definitely a struggle. And I hope that our generation comes behind this, because I can't do this alone. I really can't. I think for us, we have to come together as women and as a generation to say, enough is enough. We do want to be part of the solution. We don't want to be marginalized anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. So Virginia is asking you also, which advice would you give to young women like you to be self-empowered, to fight against this and get these impact positions inside organizations like ONU?
I think it's such a great question. Thank you so much for asking. And I think for me, the courage to do this comes, of course, from my personal experiences. I think one story that I can share is I was in Africa on a work trip. And in Africa, in Uganda, I saw a child eat mud. And it was a devastating image, because here I was living in a hotel, being able to eat anything I wanted. And this little girl is eating mud. And it was so devastating for me. And all I could do for her at that time was give her some food and cash. And I tried to ask people around, do you know her? Is she related to you? Will you be taking care of her? No one even stopped to answer those questions. And that image has always been stuck with me. And then I asked when I came back to New York, I asked one of our leaders that, this girl is eating mud. Can we do something differently? Why is there so much poverty? And he said, I quote, "Mud is good for children. It has iron." And that level of apathy, that level of indifference towards those we're here to serve, I think was just so infuriating and derogatory that I think that's always been my fire. That like, to rid inequality wherever I can and to fight for those who can't speak for themselves. So one advice I would give is like, just find that inner fire, because it's such a long journey, and you have to find that inner fire, whatever that is, and just then be true to yourself. Like, I mean, I have to tell you, as I've announced my candidacy, I get everyday unsolicited advice. Oh, if you could do this differently, if you could do this differently, and of course, you just have to take what you want and then ignore the rest. But I think just be true to yourself, because there'll be so many voices coming your way. So one advice I would just give is like, be true to yourself. Don't try to compare yourself with anyone. Have your North Pole and just keep walking towards it. And just have the courage. And there'll always be people, like, I think one thing as women, I would say, is we always celebrate perfection. Like, when we introduce ourselves, you always like highlight the highlights of my life. Like, I did ABC, but there was like so many failures behind it, so many other stories, and we don't talk about it. So I think if just to give anyone courage, I would say is be true to who you are. And remember that life is a mixed bag. There will be ups and downs, and just don't give up and enjoy the journey. I think that's what I started doing with the campaign, because there's so many hurdles. Like, you cross one, another comes. You cross one, another comes. So.
Correct. So Abigail keeps on asking that, if you win, should you address new things for young women to participate at the UN? What would you give, as a topic for them to do, or it's the same?
I think one thing that I would say, like, that's important for me, young women, boys, like just young people in general, is we need to include them in leadership positions. We cannot just expect them to do things in advocacy level. We need to empower them with the title, with the position to make real change in an organization and in the world. So one of my big platforms is to give youth leadership positions in the system. When it comes to climate action, I think we know that the solution is to engage people in nature-based solutions to move forward. We cannot expect young people to just do everything for free. Like, to go clean the streets for free, to go clean oceans for free, to plant trees for free. We need to employ young people, which means we need to have a model where we can give every person money so it becomes part of their lifestyle to do good for the environment. Because we spend so much money on conferences, we might as well help people to get the results of those conferences. So that's one thing. Another thing I would say to empower young people and women is entrepreneurship. We need to invest in climate entrepreneurship. And that includes actually giving them funding so they can come up with new products and new ways of doing things. Like, I'm sure everyone in their life has some form of plastic that needs to be replaced, your toothbrush. And to like your dry cleaning, it comes probably in plastic still. So I think climate entrepreneurship is key. For me, it's just, we need to stop talking and start doing. Give the resources needed, give the platform needed, give the awareness needed to women and young men.
Great. You know that you have an audience here that we are all in love with technology and, the combination between technology and humans. We have biotechs here that want to create their own projects, also doctors and also experts in computing, and systems programming. You name them, they are all here. So this is a good audience. And let's talk about technology a little bit. What do you think how can we help to combine both at NU?
So technology is going to be the center of civilization going forward. Like, I think so far technology has, of course, we have the fourth industrial revolution. It's shifted into every aspect, but it really hasn't shifted into government. If you think about it, governments are still not digitized. Internet is just you still have to sign things through paper in government services and stuff. So I think we need to bring technology into government services, into public services. So that is, and after COVID, we've realized that we must, we've seen the digital divide in the world and how it just enhances inequality. It doesn't prevent it. So technology is critical. With that, what needs to be done is we need to have a foundation where the entire world is connected. Today, only half of the world has access to internet. And we've landed on Mars and moons. If all of us had it, we'd probably be living on Pluto at this stage. So I think that is the foundation. With that being the foundation, I think what's important to realize is that you can never put a ceiling on technology. You can never say that I want to do ABC. We as UN, I can think and create a platform, and then sky is the limit for collaborators like those who are on this call to come together and build something great. Like, I'm sure a lot of you who's like in biotech doesn't know what someone in Singapore is doing, what someone in Malawi is doing. And I think UN can provide that platform for everyone to just communicate through that, to know what everyone is doing, and that open source sharing of ideas for social good. Estonia is a country that has 99% of government services electronic. And that's a software that I think they really want to promote in other countries. So one thing I think that I want UN to do is, even if it's about nations, we need nations to collaborate ideas and not just to talk. Like, why can't we have barter? Estonia can give their technology to Argentina. Argentina can give something else. And like, we can all collaborate. So I think there's a lot of facilitation that technology can do. And technology is also very satisfying in problem solving. Like, people want to realize their potential, and it makes problem solving very interesting in the components that it's being used in now.
You could add machine learning there also.
True.
So Miguel Angel, he's asking, what do you think about only a few countries being permanent part of some councils, such as the security one? Would you try to change something like that?
So there are two UNs. There's a UN that's a decision-making body, and then there's a UN that's implementation body. And a lot of people don't know about it because in the media, we only talk about the decision-making bodies, which are the Security Council, the General Assembly, the Economic and Social Commission. And that's almost like a tip of the iceberg. You see the tip, but you don't see the underneath. So your question on decision-making process where Security Council has 5 countries that have veto power, I agree with you. It's not democratic. It's not open. Should it be? Yes, of course, it should be. Whose decision it is? Their decision. That's the thing, that it is a decision that is made by them. Civil society has been trying to talk about that. Most Secretary Generals have spoken about that it needs to be more democratized. And if you go back into Kofi Annan years, like this is a constant conversation that's been going on. My position is that the Security Council is, of course, like with its veto powers, there are problems in there. So it's better to have it more open. But the decision-making process of the UN is still good. Given all the constraints, it's quite good. There are problems associated with it, but not that much. It's the implementation that is not done properly, which is why we don't see the results of the UN, and we keep blaming back to member states and the decision-making process. And let me give you an example. Even if Security Council does veto and stuff, there has not been veto on providing humanitarian assistance wherever there's a conflict, like Venezuela crisis. There is no decision that says we will not provide humanitarian assistance. The problem is that UN doesn't prioritize funding to that. So that's an implementation problem. And that is, the facts are, for every dollar, 30 cents goes to the cause. And we don't even give them enough funding. So we need to work towards improving implementation. And once we start to see the results in that direction, then there are not that many flaws in decision-making as it appears to be. So for me, the role of the Secretary General is defined in our charter as Chief Administrative Officer, which is to do things. And I want to be that doer, to be able to implement decisions, bring technology, bring innovation, bring people to the solution, and not just the select few, but everyone hands-on solution, and make a difference and prioritize funding to humanitarian and not to conferences and other bureaucratic activities.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I agree. So, I have a lot of questions here. I mean, it's hard to follow what is going to be the strategy if you are selected on autocratic regimes in Latin America, which is a word, you know what it means.
Yes. So the UN, it's United Nations. So the national politics of any country is like each country is a sovereign country. The national politics is their own decision. With that being said, there is Human Rights Council. that does report on gross human rights violation. And the way that works is, and I know this question comes up in this context, that how do those people even get a seat at the table? So here's the backstory. Human Rights Council was created on a selection criteria that countries will be part of it who meet the criteria of having human rights, who have like human rights conditions and like honor those treaties. But over time, the Human Rights Council has been taking countries based on a rotation basis, like a pure geographic representation. We need it from this country, we will give this country a turn. So they don't have a selection criteria anymore, like they don't apply it. It's just become a geographic rotation. So what needs to be done is that either Human Rights Council needs to get rid of that criteria that anyone whose turn it is will be on the council, or they need to uphold that criteria. So I think that's definitely something I acknowledge that can be done to address this issue of autocratic regimes. But I think one thing that empowering people with the tools to make their voices heard is something that also can address this issue of empowering people to take ownership of their countries.
Great. Yeah, sure. And what about education? No,
so education is the greatest equalizer of the 21st century. And I think in education, let's step back. Back in our grandparents' time, like my grandparents, of course, weren't educated, but at that time, a high school education was like this. And today, even if you have a PhD, it's not easy to get a job. So education needs to translate into skill set that can be learned. That means that we really need to understand what are the skills that we need today. Coding is a must. Like without coding, I don't think any kid can survive without the whole idea of like how AI works. So I think education is critical, but we really don't have to be traditional about it. We don't have to go into the same schools and have the same courses that don't work. So we need to revamp education. We need to modernize it. And two things need to be critical. One is we need to bring technology. We really need the next generation to be fully fluent in technology and applications and coding. Secondly, mental health. I think this is a very hidden topic no one talks about, but mental health is something that needs to be addressed in our education curriculum. We need to talk about it. We need to train the young people how to deal with it. Because, once you turn 25, you've almost been bullied out. You figured it out and life has been a struggle. But until then, it is a huge challenge. And we need to invest in mental health, in educating and making people aware, and even older, to give them the tools to cope with the stresses of daily life. So to summarize, education is critical. We need to revamp it by bringing technology and mental health, and we need to be creative in the delivery of education. It doesn't have to be done traditional anymore. We can absolutely go virtual.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. We need to change the education system as well, so everybody here can help. Also, there's a question I like here is, what woman you admire and who helped you? Maybe a woman that helped you in your path to where you are now.
So I, of course, I'm heavily influenced by my grandmothers and mother. So back in the day, my grandmothers were such strong women that they held the budget of the house. My grandfathers would come and give them the money and they would manage and prioritize. So I've, of course, been raised by strong women. My mother is very strong. So I think that influence has really helped. In terms of women I admire, Michelle Obama is someone I definitely admire, because what I like about Michelle Obama is just that ability to say that that you need help. Her book, Becoming, is about a journey of you're becoming a new person every day. You're learning new day. So I think just that humble acceptance that you're not perfect and that's perfectly okay. And you're constantly learning and using the support system that you have around you. So for me, what I like about her is that every time she talks, it's not a victory lap. Oh my God, look at me, look at my accomplishment. It's not just a celebration. It's a celebration of failures. It's a celebration of the human aspect of the learning and growth and the failures that come with it. So I think that is very admirable. To be at that level and openly talk about shortcomings is just humbling.
Okay, perfect. So Agus, do you have something to add here? I think we haven't talked a little bit about Latin America. How is the ONU in Latin America, Agustin? And then we ask Arora what she's going to do to help us. Does this make sense? You being part, Agustín, of Latin America?
Yeah, thank you very much for, first of all, for calling out this meeting and reaching out so many interesting people here. So thank you all. And just to leave Arora to take a breath after too many questions. Yeah, I think the context is quite particular in Latin America, and when speaking about autocratic governments, it popped into my mind well, a topic that cross-cuts what my specialization in the UN is basically at, and I'm talking about environmentalist rights, no, activist rights, and that's a very, very interesting example because Latin America is the first region in the world having a compulsory agreement, a regional agreement for defending environmental defenders, right? So I guess that's kind of a very important milestone in the history of the UN, because the treaty, it also adds that when a government official goes or breaks some human right of every one of us, which is defending nature or a project that considers that affects his own life and his way of life, you can go directly, or justice can go directly to that functioner, and this is something very innovative because the UN generally treaties that are signed in the UN have not this mandatory, or yes, they are mandatory, but they don't have like the penalties for making enforcement actions for countries to act in a particular way, considering what Arora was mentioning of national sovereignty, right? So I was thinking on that concrete example, and I don't know if you have any question about maybe environment, or, well, if we speak about Latin America, it's quite fun to speak about also geopolitics and how environmental issues are so cross-cut with every other topic, like technology, as you were mentioning. We are a very diverse, in terms of natural resources, region that is very, very it's very difficult to compare it to other regions, right? So I think we have to go to concrete questions, maybe. Sorry, Arora.
Augustine, I would just add something that you've definitely educated me a lot about is the eternal debt of Latin America. Like, I know you like to call it eternal debt. It's external debt, but it's just become eternal debt. And how I think one thing that UN can definitely do is help with that. Because to have a fresh start after COVID, to introduce green infrastructure, to introduce nature-based solution, we need investments. But we need to make sure we can cancel the past baggage that is on Latin America. And I think this is something to prioritize for Latin America, is what do we do with the eternal debt and how do we start fresh?
Yeah, yes, I think it's true, and I like to frame it that way. Not external but eternal, because that's the right way to frame it, and to try to make people think on how geopolitics and where is the real power, no? But apart from, or besides what you are saying, Arora, I would like to add that we need like a very, very deep change in leadership, and that's why I support you, and that's why I'm here, because if you dig into these questions, you will end up finding that the lack we have, at least to make the first pillar changes to move into another development pathway, we need to think of leaders, and we need to think of leaders that bring into the agenda the right topics, speak with the truth, speak with the heart. Because when, for instance, when we speak about post-COVID recovery packages, for instance, when we speak what are governments doing for coming out of this crisis, which is not obviously health crisis, but economic, social, everything. And if you see the measures, they are all measures that are being enunciated by governments are to bet in those sectors which brought us here, no? So that is very, very important to communicate, because it's nonsense, no? The world is lacking so much leadership, and they are selling like fake solutions for the climate and humanitarian crisis. And we, well, in my personal activist life, not only as a diplomat, I'm always asked about these questions. Aus asks me a lot about this, and my conclusion is that even we can be so easily biased, even if we are very well educated, as everyone here is obviously. I am really thrilled by how can we easily be biased in so fake solutions to real development for a region like Latin America. No, if you can see this eternal debt we've been stuck in, and now well, as I was saying, the way to magically get out of this crisis is to bet on fossil fuel industries, to bet on big powers and big concentrated powers that like to, or they have been treating this region as only a region of extractivism, no? Extract natural resources, and every idea that comes along with value added, with technology, with distributing power, no? And that's why it's so important for you to be here, because this is all about creating a network, not for Arora to win, but for all of us to win, and to really deconcentrate power. And the case of Latin America is to foster entrepreneurs. We have countries like Argentina, mainly, with a huge and very, very, even worldwide, very robust scientific system, and it's not being valued at all. No, we see politics being framed all around extractivism and minery, and, well, to sell commodities to China. And so that's not the way to create jobs, to create innovation. And that's very, very capital intensive, but not job intensive. That's something we need to know. So, well, I know the coolest thing about this is that we are creating this network, and this is something creating bottom up. So you are part of this, and any questions you have, be very comfortable to ask, because we cannot do it alone, as Arora says. So you have to become leaders of this reality that is going on. So,
you have audience here, Agus, that are from Brazil, Peru, Chile. It's not only Argentina. So, but yeah, we understand that we need to hack the system here in the region. So we are working now to improve that from, our team. Yeah, it's a good word. Hack it. Yeah, and Arora and Agus, how can we help? I mean, it's the opposite now. How can we help to change this? Right? Somebody was asking, how are normal people? Yes. I think it was Mateus. How can we normal people get there, involved, and do something?
So I think this is where it gets very interesting. we have to create awareness about this, about the problems at the UN and how the solution is a change in leadership to bring in new generation of leadership. And the old guard is not making it easy. There are, of course, a lot of challenges. So I think our first request is to help in spreading the message, to organize such events, like for all of you, like, I mean, there's not just one Augustine, one Aurora, it's all of us in this together to make a difference. So I think to spread the word on your social media platforms, and if you would like to be our ambassador to spread our word, please just email, and we would love to share the campaign messaging platform with you, and then you can spread the word. The second thing is to actually go on my website, Arora for SG, FOR. August, if you can write that in the chat box for them.
I think it's already there.
Oh, it is? Perfect. And then vote. Like a vote sends an email to ambassadors that you want change and we want a new leadership. The other thing is being part of a new vision statement. Like, we need your ideas. A lot of times, people just don't share their ideas, and new ideas don't make it to the UN. So I'm looking for anyone who has skills in technology, who wants to share like how technology can be used for social impact, who actually has digitized skills to make videos for us. So any form of volunteer help would also be super exciting, because we want to take our vision statement and make videos out of it, and engage with people. So please reach out, and happy to engage one-on-one, because we also want this to be a journey of fulfillment for you. Like, you are satisfied in doing your part. So any way you'd like to. And so I can again summarize the ask. Please vote, please spread the word. We're looking for outreach events like this. If you can organize within your community, if you can organize this within the press, like to bring in more articles, and to, if you have digital skills of helping make videos for us and content, we would love that as well.
Oh, that's great. So we have a lot of work to do, and you have the correct people here. So I think it's enough for today. I wish we would like to, keep on having these conversations, but I think that the team needs to process, and all that are listening here, I'm sure they want to do something else. I know that some answers haven't been answered, some questions, but the idea is that to start thinking about how we can help you. So you keep on asking, and they are going to get, I promise you, they are going to get in contact with you directly as well.
Please do.
And so this is an open session, for everybody to know and meet. And thank you very much for being here. I know it's late. And how many days you have for this dream to come true?
We're trying to get nominations as soon as possible. So hopefully in a month to get the nomination, and then the election is in October. So I think nomination is critical. If you have contacts in the government, to please just tell governments, to tell everyone, we need a new UN, we need a new leadership, we need to be part of this together. So any form, so you are our ambassadors to spread the message.
Great. So I don't know if one of the millennials that are here wants to close. Are you ready, or that's it? Just put the hand on. Martina.
Hello.
She's 19.
Can I say anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, genial. First, thanks, really thanks. And second, wow. This was really impressive, and I'm sure everyone here has the same feeling. Thank you for this very much, Aurora. It's a pleasure to meet you and know your story. I think I speak for everyone when I say that your story is inspiring, especially when thinking about where it is you and how you impact what we believe is possible. What change is possible, what kinds of people, ideas, what kinds of future we can reach if there are more Auroras in the world. Thanks for being here, sharing with us, and answering all of our questions. Also, no one will forgive me if I forgot to tell you this. You are welcome to your community at Singularity University, Buenos Aires, and we hope to know much more about you. And what do I say? Of course, we will, because this is just the story you lived through so far, and you have so much more ahead. You leave me thinking about something, William, at Singularity. To change, we try to learn more and more, but how about we try and learn, but aside any outdated way of thinking and visualize the changing world? To transform what we do, we first must transform how we think.
Yes.
And well, really thank for you. You are breaking the status quo. Also, it was nice. Thank you to you here. Very thank you. And you're amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored and humbled. And I think just the energy in this environment that you've created is just so uplifting. So thank you so much for the great work you do, the leadership that you show in your daily lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Martina, you are great. Now she's our 19
Martina
years old.
Martina, you are the next Secretary General.
So thank you, Agus and Arora and this amazing team that organized this and helped all of us, and say hi from Peru, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina, of course.
De verdad, gracias a todos ustedes también que se sumaron hoy a compartir esta conversación. Gracias, Agus, por también estar y por hacer todo este, digamos, intermediario también, por ponerle onda también a todo esto. Y bueno, gracias por estar todos con nosotros, con su energía, su curiosidad, para conocer más sobre la disrupción y el quiebre del status quo que nos están tocando a la puerta. Son maravillosos, así que estamos muy felices de que ya se hayan interesado en esta iniciativa, y con muchas ganas de seguir organizando actividades copadas, así que los invitamos a que sean parte de esta comunidad, a que sigan el chapter en las redes para estar al día con las novedades, y sobre todo que nos escriban y nos tiren ideas nuevas. Todo es bienvenido, suma, y que sigamos creciendo. Y bueno, esperamos que lo hayan disfrutado tanto como nosotros, y nos vemos,
que es el 29.
El 29 de abril. Sobre
Perfecto.
Movilidad sustentable y la brecha en Latinoamérica. Específicamente, nos dijo que era específicamente eso.
Perfecto.
Para los que nos va a estar llegando un mail en las próximas semanas, más o menos. Así que bueno, un placer compartir con todos ustedes.
Muchas gracias, Martina, Agus.
Gracias.
Se viene.
Gracias, thank you everybody. Talk to you soon.
Chao, gracias.
Keep in touch. Chao, bye bye.
Muy bueno, chao, chao.